y'all, my name's Alicia, and today I'm going to be discussing Witches of Ash and Ruin by E. Latimer. So I'm going to give my likes and dislikes of this book, as well as get into a discussion about the broader tropes of mental illness seen in this book from my perspective as a grad student who kind of studies the representation of disability in media. So if you're interested in that, stick around and let's discuss. This book is about a 17-year-old witch named Dana who is bisexual and has OCD. She has recently been outed as bisexual in school, which resulted in her breaking up with her boyfriend. She's got a lot of family drama going on. Her mother, who is mentally ill, is coming back from a camp that she's been at for a very long time, and so there's a lot of tension in her household with her mother and father and herself. And then the main plot revolves around a serial killer who is killing witches in this small Irish town, and the coven, Dana's coven, as well as another coven who comes from a different town, who there is just no one trusts each other. There's a lot of tension. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. These covens have to work together to find out who these serial killers are. You know, is there one or multiple? Why are they killing witches? They're wondering, you know, is this a ritual? And if so, at what point will the ritual be complete, and what is going to happen when it is completed? So if that premise sounds interesting to you and you don't want to be spoiled, I recommend stopping the video now. But if you're not going to read it and you're just here to chat about mental illness in YA books, you can stick around for the discussion. Thank you for watching, and let's just get into it. Right off the bat, I am so excited that this is a fantasy book with OCD representation as well as the representation of bisexuality, because those two types of representation I don't think I've ever seen together in a book, let alone a fantasy book, which is my favorite genre. So I was really excited, not to mention that I also have OCD as well as I am bisexual, and I was so excited when I saw this. The universe was telling me to get this book because the author shares the same last name as me and we are both Canadian, and add that to the representation, and I was like, wow, okay, I need to read this book ASAP. So I automatically ordered it online and read it right away, and I am not disappointed. I'm glad I did. One of the positive aspects of the mental illness rep in this book, not only that it's own voices, which I really like, it is somatic OCD. So I personally don't have somatic OCD. I don't know anyone in real life who has somatic OCD, and I've never read about a somatic OCD in fiction. So it is very exciting to see own voices rep of that. And I really enjoyed the conversation about medication in the book. So we know Dana is scared to take medication. She is apprehensive because she's afraid that it will change her brain chemistry, that it will alter her personality. And I think that's a real fear that a lot of people do have, whether they're, they have anxiety or OCD or another mental illness that they are considering taking medication for. So I think, the fact that that fear was addressed, and we have both sides to it. Mina, who takes medication and does find it very helpful, and Dana, who does CBT instead, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and she kind of sticks with that and doesn't take medication. I really enjoyed that it showed both sides of that, and it kind of showed that both are okay. Like, it's not wrong or right to take medication or not to take it, so I enjoyed that aspect. And another thing I really enjoyed is how refreshing the magic system was, because each witch has to pledge themselves to a god or goddess, and it kind of builds on Irish mythology, and it was so much fun. And I didn't even know that much about Irish mythology going in, so I really enjoyed learning new things along the way. The first issue I had with the OCD representation, even though it is own voices, and I do not want to speak about the accuracy of the representation, that is not my issue, but in my opinion, it kind of just dropped off in the middle of the book. It was kind of a focus, especially the first couple of chapters. As the book went on, it just kind of fell off. Like, it didn't mention it again. She didn't seem overly, hindered by it. And I really would have liked to see that influence of OCD on how she acts and how she thinks, throughout the entire book instead of just at the beginning. It was only really brought up a couple times throughout the book, and I really thought the character stated that she had OCD more than it was shown that she actually does have OCD. So I didn't like that aspect of it. Getting into what I didn't like so much about the mental illness representation and mental disability representation is Grand King and Fiona, who is Dana's mother. I'm going to talk briefly about both characters and then how they tie together in a broader trope that I don't like seeing in literature or any type of media. Fiona is Dana's mother, and she was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis after Dana was born, and when Dana was young, she was sent away to a camp called Camp of the Blood of the Lamb, because it's a religious camp, and I'm not sure how helpful that is for mental illness. It's not. But anyway, that is where Fiona was sent because her husband, Dana's father, is a reverend, and the whole town is very conservative and religious. So, yes. But now at the beginning of the book, we have Fiona coming back, and she's very vacant and unresponsive and dangerous. She attacks Dana multiple times. And we know that she was possessed by something, we don't know, and she's helping these three brothers kill Dana and the rest of the coven. She's against the witches, she's helping the serial killers. And so it's very unclear how all this happened, whether because Fiona was mentally ill, she was able to be possessed, or whether she was never mentally ill at all and it was just always possession. So I'm really not sure. It's very vague on the details, but I didn't enjoy that it wasn't straightforward. Moving on to the second character, Grand King. So she is not mentally ill, but she does have dementia, which is a mental disability. And Grand King is a very cruel, manipulative, abusive person. Not only verbally abusive, but physically abusive to Cora as well as Miner. And I'm not saying it's wrong to portray mentally ill or disabled people as abusive, because they certainly can be. They can be mean, cruel people. But the issue I have with it in this book is that it is shown that her disability is so bad that she would do anything to get rid of it, including murder people. She, instead of living with disability, it's the worst thing that could ever happen to her. She will go so far as to kill as many people as she has to get rid of it. And that is the issue I have. Is it's such an undesirable thing that it's worth it to kill other people to get rid of it. I didn't like that aspect. And what connects Fiona and Grand King, one being mentally ill and one mentally disabled, is that both are very dangerous and scary people. This is a trope often seen in media that explores the representation of mental illness, where especially with disorders that are, less well known, such as psychotic disorders or personality disorders, is the person with a disorder is seen as a very violent, dangerous, scary person that is somehow in their head living in a completely, disconnected, separate reality. And that is just not the case. And I think it spreads a lot of misconceptions and fear and kind of builds up the stigma that we're working so hard to dismantle in society. And so I really don't appreciate that this book was kind of adding to that stigma instead of raising awareness of how mental illness and mental disability actually impact people. So instead of combating stigma as, you would want from a book that represents mental illness and mental disability, is this book actually kind of reinforced those stereotypes that, it's your right to be afraid of people with mental illnesses. They are dangerous, they are scary, and they are, they're dangerous to be around. You don't want to be around them. And I think that is what really kind of turned me off of this book, and kind of near the end made me reconsider how I thought about the representation of mental illness. Another thing is that the plot was not fully cohesive. There seemed to be a lot of pieces that just didn't fit together at the end, such as the beginning of the book. It kind of felt different than the end. So in the beginning, Dana, she's outed as bisexual in school. This results in her breakup with Sam, and this really had no impact on the rest of the book, the plot, at all, and I wasn't sure why it was included. So Dana isn't in school for the entire novel. I don't know why it mentions what happened at school, because it really doesn't build on any of those relationships, any of the, rumors that were floating around. It didn't really seem to impact the plot at all. And the same goes for her relationship with Sam. I'm not even sure why they broke up. It isn't clear, because Sam clearly doesn't care whether she's bisexual or not, and he wants to get back together, and it's not clear why she broke it off. And he wasn't really in the book the whole time. He didn't have that much of a purpose. He was just kind of there, seeing everything happen. And kind of building off of Sam being there and nothing happening, there were way too many points of view. Sam's point of view was kind of useless. Duve did not need a point of view. Cora did not need a point of view. It almost felt like we were watching the same scene, twice in a row when we switched characters, so I didn't enjoy that aspect, and I really think it would have been stronger if we had cut out all the points of view other than Mina and Dana. And the last thing I could not figure out for the life of me is this whole conflict between Cora and Miner. They're fighting over who gets to be the leader of the coven. Miner doesn't want to be leader of the coven. As soon as she ascends, she's out of the coven. And then we have Cora, who wants to be leader, but I'm like, if, Miner leaves and Grand King isn't going to be around for that much longer either, or, if she is, she's mentally ill and incapable of doing magic, what are you the leader of? There's no coven to lead, and I was so confused why they were even fighting over it when Miner clearly doesn't want it. So that was my review of Witches of Ash and Ruin by E. Latimer. It was kind of disappointing that everything didn't tie up at the end overall, but that being said, I am going to continue with the series. It was enjoyable, and again, it was very refreshing to have, a queer mental illness rep in fantasy that we usually don't see. So I do want to support the author. I do want to support this type of story, and I'm going to continue the series. That is it for my review. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time with another video. Thanks, guys. Bye.